Next, I want to take a look at all of the different documents that are available through Canvas and through this curriculum. You notice down here you have your units. We start with the unit titled Nature of Science. This is all of those science things that we know as science teachers we have to teach to be able to actually teach science, such as lab safety, scientific instruments and equipment, the scientific process or the scientific inquiry method, and graphing skills are all incorporated in this Nature of Science unit. But when you move down to the numbered units, this is the actual curriculum based on the Alabama course of study for 8th grade physical science. And when you click on that, notice you have several options available here. We talked about checkpoint questions. Those are those formative assessment questions. There are several different kinds. There is claim, evidence, reasoning questions, which are an open-ended response in which students have to make a claim and use evidence to support their reasoning. Notice it gives them a diagram, gives them something to read, and then gives them a question. Also included is a grading rubric for you. It tells you the correct answer. It also gives you the distractor when there are multiple choices. The distractor is that answer that is really close to being correct, but has one little nitpicky thing that makes it the incorrect answer or not the best answer, even if the information is correct. This is why I said these are great for test prep. It tells you the claim that the student should make, evidence that they should use to support their answer, other types of checkpoint questions include multiple choice questions, which again give you the correct answer and the distractor and explains why it is the distractor. It also explains why the incorrect answers are incorrect. This one has 2 questions per page just to make it easier for you. If you want to print these off, you can print them off and cut them in half, saving paper. So checkpoint questions are an excellent resource for formative assessment. I use them as quiz grades in my class. Some people actually add up the points and use those points for an extra test grade for each 9 weeks. How you use those as a grade, of course, is to your discretion, but I highly recommend that you do use the checkpoint questions and take the time to go through the answers and explain why the answers are not correct, why the distractor is close to being correct, but where the discrepancy is that makes it not the best answer, because that helps them to get into that train of thought for test taking skills. So we go back to Unit 1. Next, we have a list of all the labs and activities within a folder. So these are all of the labs and activities in Unit 1. This is an easy way to find those directions that you need for the particular activity you are doing for that day. Then we have the Unit 1 overview. This document gives you your course of study objectives, It also references the next generation science standards. It also references the next generation science standards. Tells you the big idea of this unit. What is the big science idea we are trying to teach? And it gives a more detailed, enduring understanding. It also lists each of the topics that will be taught in this unit. Notice they are color-coded here, and those colors are referenced in other documents. We offer guiding questions and performance expectations if you are required to put those I can statements or students will be able to statements on the board. They are provided here for you. This is a great document for lesson planning. Next, we have the Unit 1 pacing and recommendations. Again, you see the color coding integrated in here. You have the recommended time frame for this entire unit. A little previous knowledge that students will need to have or are expected to have. Then you have each topic and how long you can expect to teach that topic. For instance, matter and pure substances versus mixture are taught in the same day. However, states of matter will require 2 days to teach. It includes YouTube videos, other links that you will need. This, again, is another excellent document for planning. The next thing I would like to look at are the student notes. These are notes for each unit that are written in outline format. And throughout the notes, there are built-in student interactions, as well as diagrams and occasional websites to visit. Here's an example of a note interaction. In the past, I have printed out every single page of student notes and made notebooks for my students with them. This is basically their textbook for the year. It takes a lot of time on the front end in the summer. Miraculously, I've had very few students lose theirs. I always just print an extra 5 or 10 copies for when that happens. Notice the vocabulary is in bold print. So all of the important vocabulary words are in bold print throughout the document. Lots of colored diagrams. So these are also excellent as virtual notebooks. I always post a copy to my students' Google Classroom so they have access to their notes wherever they are. I usually leave a blank page in between units because there's always things that I want to add or need them to write down that there is not space for within the notes. Next is the teacher notes. This is what I use on a regular basis just to help keep my pacing. Once I've planned my lessons and created my scope and sequence where I know what my pacing looks like, I keep this document on my desk just to help me each day as I come in. Okay, I know that today we are doing states of matter, day 1. It points out what checkpoint questions we're supposed to do and walks you through step by step exactly what you should do and in what order you should do it. This is like the teacher textbook version. This is like the teacher version of the textbook. I have actually printed each of these out and keep them in a binder on my desk. It lays everything out for me, and there have been times when I have had to be out of my classroom. Depending on which sub I have in my room, I have 2 subs that can pick this up and continue my class exactly as I would if I were there. There is also a student PowerPoint included. You can use this in any way you see fit. You can use this to teach from. I add it to the Google Classroom as an extra reference for students who are more visual learners. Also, the presentation is an excellent example of one of Marzano's strategies of chunking the information. It breaks things down into small sections. So this is really helpful for your students who may be ADHD or may have some specific learning disabilities. You can give them just one slide to focus on at a time. And that helps to break down the information into small, digestible pieces so they are not overwhelmed. The student notes sometimes can be a little overwhelming. And then each unit has a task assessment. The task assessment is usually a project-based or problem-based learning opportunity to assess the overall unit. One last thing I want to take a look at that we have not looked at yet are the proficiency scales. I have been working really hard in my class over the last 2 years to incorporate proficiency scales more often. These are new this year and I love them. Notice it gives all of the key terms for the unit at the top. And then it gives an easy way for students to track where they are with the content. Now, hopefully, this will change over the course of the unit. And so we reference these as we cover certain topics. For instance, I can describe the difference between matter and non-matter items. Students can tell you quickly and easily without being embarrassed in front of the class if they feel like that they need help reteaching, that they can do this with some help or with some guidance from their notes, that they are very confident and can do this on their own, or that they know this well enough that they can teach others. So this column right here, I can do this by myself. This is the goal for all of our students. We want them to feel very confident that they can do this on their own. Doing it well enough to teach others, as you know, is one of the highest depths of knowledge a student can have with a particular content. So within one unit, you have checkpoint questions, labs, and activities. You have the overview document, which is great for all of those things that administrators like to see on lesson plans. And then you have pacing and recommendations, which is great for your personal planning on how long it's going to take for each activity or each section of the unit. You have proficiency scales, so students can become leaders of their own learning and keep record of how they feel about the content and help you to know where students stand. Student notes, which are basically the student textbook for these units. Teacher notes, which are the teacher's version of the textbook. The task assessment, which is the culminating activity for the unit. And then a presentation of the information, which helps you to break down the information into small, digestible chunks for your students that can be used as the teacher leading discussion through the class or as an extra resource for students. Notice we have 8 total units, including the Nature of Science unit. The first units, properties of matter, atomic structure and function, chemical bonding, and compounds and mixtures, are taught the first semester. These are the chemistry-based units within the physical science curriculum. And then for the second semester, we have the energy and forces in motion units that are taught the second half of the year.